Hi everyone, I'm Ella Lawson. I was a SEEP Fellow at the University of Mississippi in fall 2018, and now I'm an intern for the Fellows team. Today, I'm going to be guiding you through the best practices training. We're going to learn about the best ways to engage your peers on campus, gain the skills necessary to be able to navigate conversations with your peers while staying nonpartisan, and learn how to assist students with absentee and early voting. What does best practices include? This training will explain SEEP's recommendations for leading successful and effective events in voter registration, voter education, absentee and early voting, and get out the vote. We'll also talk about the best strategies for having civic dialogue. Voter registration events include any effort intended to register students to vote. Since registration rules and procedures vary by state, we recommend that you research your state laws and reach out to your state director and Secretary of State's office with questions. Here, we've listed a couple of questions that you should know. Make sure you know the answers to: who can legally be registered to vote? When is the deadline for in-person registration? Does your state offer online voter registration? If so, what does the process look like? What, if any, identification do you need to take to the polls? Does a campus ID card meet state law criteria? Keep in mind the fact that college students can register to vote at their home or campus address, and you should be ready to talk through these options with each student. Voter registration events can take a variety of forms. You can use tabling, dorm storms, posters and bulletin boards, registration at orientation, candidate forums, social media campaigns, virtual voter summits, question and answer sessions, text and email chains, social media, and much more. Feel free to brainstorm and come up with even more creative event ideas. With our new virtual options, a whole new world of virtual voter engagement is at your disposal. Get creative and find ways to engage your campus off and online. If you're having trouble coming up with event ideas, check out our virtual event suggestions in the Fellows Drive. You can also ask your state director what other fellows have done in the past, and SEEP will provide opportunities for you to connect with other students and exchange ideas. We also recommend that you take advantage of the many online tools available to help students register to vote. Use tablets, laptops, and phones to share links to the SEEP website and your state Secretary of State website. Look into other tools like vote.org as well. We will be tracking a majority of our voter registration through online platforms and QR codes, so it's important that you understand the tools you have at your disposal. If you have any questions about SEEP-specific links for voter registration, please ask your state director. To host successful voter registration drives, we recommend that you plan events around holidays. National Voter Registration Day is a great time to get students excited about registering to vote. When I was a fellow, I created a series of events in the week leading up to National Voter Registration Day and partnered with our student government and social work department to maximize resources and get as many people talking about voting as possible. We've also had fellows create events around holidays like Halloween and Valentine's Day. Across the board, when planning events, it's important to pick times and locations that are easy for lots of students to attend. Start planning early to make sure that everything runs smoothly on the day of the event. Begin advertising early so that as many people as possible know about the event too. Use social media, email, bulletin boards, and more to let people know about your events. Also, connect with other campus administration, student government, and other organizations to increase reach. Similar to building your team, it's important to create some on-campus partnerships early on in your event planning. Reach out to people who have the same goal of increasing the student voter turnout. If you're not sure who to reach out to, talk to your campus advisor and state director for advice on where to start. They might know some great connections that can help you plan your events and engage your campus. And don't forget, be creative. Think about what might draw your eye or pique your interest. You know your campus better than anyone, so have fun and make events that are engaging for all. Voter education events include any effort to educate students on the electoral process. You can talk to students about issues and candidates, why elections matter, the history of voting rights and youth participation, and election day information. There are lots of different strategies that you can take when it comes to voter education, but first and foremost, it's important that you and any volunteers you have are well educated on voting. Voter education events are supposed to bring clarity, not confusion. So make sure to do plenty of research before getting started and host thorough trainings for volunteers. Reach out to your state director with any questions you have. Voter education events are a time to bring students together to discuss voting logistics and meaningful issues, and to distribute helpful resources and informational packets. SEEP has lots of resources available to you to either learn about voter engagement yourself, so that you can educate others, or for you to distribute to others. You can find these resources on the Fellows Drive, or on our website. You can also ask your state director for more specific resources, or you can recommend some resources that you'd like to see. The best voter education events are the most creative ones. Make sure that you facilitate conversations and activities that include lots of students. Consider leading voter education seminars in classrooms or hosting town halls, voter summits, and debate watch parties. Lots of these events can be converted to a digital setting, so keep that in mind if your campus is virtual this fall. You can also consider posting announcements through your school's messaging system or leading online trivia games. There's currently a lot of resources out there to help people have civil dialogue and educational events around voting and candidates and their stances on issues. It can be tricky sometimes, but there are even ways to do it in a nonpartisan manner. Check out Living Room Conversations for information on leading discussions. You may also be interested in utilizing resources from the Fair Election Legal Network, the League of Women Voters, Nonprofit Vote, and Project VoteSmart. For more, you can also ask your state director for any SEEP-specific resources we might have. Before starting a voter education event, make sure that you and your volunteers have a firm grasp on all the information you are presenting and discussing. Also, prepare resources like nonpartisan candidate guides and sample ballots so that students have access to correct information. This is also a great opportunity to work with your campus newspaper and radio station to run articles and radio pieces on voting. It's important that your voter education events are inclusive, so you should invite lots of people to your discussions. Include campus administrators and faculty in your conversations. Reach out to students all over campus, like those in STEM majors and multicultural organizations, so that lots of people can participate. Absentee and early voting will be especially important this fall. Absentee voting refers specifically to ballots cast by voters who are unable or unwilling to go to a polling place. Early voting refers to ballots cast prior to Election Day. Both these forms of voting help break down barriers for voters and help to increase participation. Think about all the different situations that people might face to keep them from making it to the polls on Election Day. Students will likely have lots of questions about absentee and early voting, so make sure you know a lot about your state's rules and procedures. Before you start talking to other students about absentee or early voting, make sure you can answer all of these questions for your state. When does early voting begin, and where do I go to vote early? Do I need my ID to vote early? What if I have a mail-in or absentee ballot? How do I ensure my ballot is counted after I mail it? Can ballots be forwarded to the person at another address? These are the questions your peers will be asking, so it's important that you are confident in the process and all of the latest laws and dates surrounding the early voting process. There are many ways to promote absentee and early voting, from handing out packets of information to connecting with interested voters over social media to leading group discussions. An early voting event is similar to a getting out the vote event because you are getting someone to vote, so you can use tools like a pledge to vote or a text chain that you might use on Election Day. However, it's also similar to a voter registration event since you are trying to get other students to fill out the proper paperwork to request their absentee ballot. Pick and choose some tactics that you might use at other types of events to find the right combination for an early voting event. There are also several online tools that you can use. Vote Early Day is a holiday on October 24th specifically to increase awareness and access to early voting. Your Secretary of State's website is always a great place to start for all voting information. This is also a great place to direct people to register to vote or to request an absentee ballot. Another great tool to use is vote.org. It's a one-stop shop for all of your voting-related needs. No matter what state you're in, they will direct you to the proper channels to register to vote, learn about the candidates, request an absentee ballot, and anything else you need. It's a great tool since it's so easy to use. We've got a couple of tips and tricks for leading a successful absentee or early voting event. First of all, it's important to be informed about your state laws and deadlines regarding voting early or absentee so that you can talk to students through one-on-one discussions. Do lots of research and ask your state director about specific questions you come up with. GOTV, or Get Out the Vote events, are very important. Getting students to turn up at the polls brings together all the work that you've done and makes sure that students' voices are heard. These events usually take place in the immediate lead up to the election, but your work begins before Election Day. As students register to vote, help them to create Election Day plans, making sure that they have a way to get to the polls. Also, hand out information on polling locations, same-day registration if your state offers it, and candidate guides. Check out our GOTV training for more information. GOTV events can take many different forms. Before Election Day, you can have students pledge to vote and create plans for how to get to the polls. On Election Day, you can send out reminders through text, email, and Canvas announcements. You can also create a phone bank to spread awareness and remind students to vote, and organize rides to the polls to help students make it there. On election night, you can host parties watching the results over Zoom or social media. 866-R-VOTE is a hotline from the Election Protection Coalition that helps people navigate voting rules and procedures. They can provide support and answer questions on Election Day to make sure that each person's vote counts. Hosting a successful GOTV event is about motivating students to get out to the polls. Be prepared to talk about same-day voter registration and the necessary forms of voter identification. Start planning and advertising early, building a coalition as you go. Create opportunities to engage directly, and work hard to make the voting process as easy as possible for students. We recommend that you directly engage with students through social media, having one-on-one conversations on your favorite platforms. When planning events, include volunteers, advisors, and faculty members. Not only will they be able to provide new ideas and perspectives, but it will make implementation easier down the road. Work with a coalition to get Election Day observed as a campus holiday. Civic dialogue is about civic issues, policies, and decisions of consequence to people's lives, communities, and society. Meaningful civic dialogue is both intentional and purposeful, and it will likely be a part of all the voting work you do. So it's good to think about some of these discussions before they start. Civic dialogue is especially important for voter education events, since you will lead a variety of discussions with students who may have reservations about voting. You should practice having these conversations before holding events, so that you are ready and confident on the day of the event. Include your volunteers in these practice discussions, since they will also be talking with students. As you practice, your confidence will grow, and it will be easier to engage students who are not interested in registration or voting. We'll walk through some common topics now, but you can work through our Living Room Conversations training or a civic discussion guide for more information. Here are some common statements that students might make when approached about voting. There are lots of different ways to respond, but we've provided a few examples here. When a student says that they're already registered to vote, you could ask them if they've changed addresses recently or if they would like to add or change a party affiliation. If they say they can't vote, you can give them examples of ways that they can become civically engaged through volunteering. Maybe a student simply isn't interested in voting or doesn't believe in it. You can ask why and try to engage with their answer through calm, civil dialogue. If they say they don't trust the government, you can point out that voting is one way of holding government officials accountable. If a student says that they aren't from your particular college town, you can let them know that they are allowed to vote at their home or campus address, and that you can help them with an absentee ballot too. If they claim that their vote doesn't matter, you can tell them about local elections that have been lost over just a few votes, and find out what local issues they care about. If they say they don't have enough information, you can offer them resources on Election Day logistics or candidate guides. Needless to say, there are many different questions that students will have, so be ready to engage with them. If you don't know something, that's okay. Reach out to your state director, get the answer, and follow up with the student. If you have any questions, please reach out to your state director or the National Fellows team to find out more information. Thank you for listening. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook to keep up with what we're doing, or check out our website for more information.